I just love you guys, and I appreciate you being here for us, and I appreciate you doing the things that you're doing, and I appreciate you building this. Please like this episode, as well as every other episode you do enjoy going on right now that I'm very excited about. And I see Doge, and I see the realignment of the educational system coming together for a real unique opportunity that we haven't had in a long time. And that's exciting more and more each day. It all comes back to coming back to yourself, taking your you have three brains, right? You have the brain of the head, you have the brain of the heart, and you have the brain of the gut, gut instinct, right? I would love to really be able to get into some comfortable situations where we can start feeding back into the community that we haven't had in a long time. If we take the right approach, we have the ability to really dramatically affect not only the children growth, we could start turning revenues and rolling them into, for instance, here in the small town, seeing what kind of effects we have. We have coming up very shortly, as much as we should. And I think this is probably the strongest because it has emotion as well. And then those two signal to the brain to send out the chemicals that do the work that needs to be done according to whatever I have already talked a little bit about it with Emma on Emma Lynn and Grandpa Rod. What's up, folks? How you doing, man? This is Rod Duff, your host of Insights and Straight Talk. We're here for our 6th show of the week. We have a down day on Sunday to process and to speak and to meditate and to think about things and speak with the Lord about how we're going and how we're doing. That's an everyday occurrence, but Sunday is a day that, well, the library's closed, so I can't do the show. But speaking of the library, Margaret Carter is what the library is actually named after, a person who was very, very involved in the beginning of not only this town, but this library that goes back to I think it's the 1930s when it was built, 36, I think. And just wonderful people and have done such a wonderful job in sponsoring us and really believing in the Regeneration School Project. So I wanted to mention that we're working on getting to the 10,000 subscribers. I haven't looked in the last 2 days, but I know, well, I shouldn't say that. I did look yesterday, and we'd received another 20 subscribers. So thank you for that. We have 37 people on. Why don't you guys all subscribe? I assume a number of you already have, or maybe all of you have. I don't know. Can you subscribe twice? Just kidding. That is something that we're looking to get to by November. I also wanted to do a little bit here. I was just talking to Simon in the back room, in the green room, off stage, let's say, and I want to go back a little bit because of all the new subscribers. I want to really get into why. Just for a few minutes here and just remembering why I started this show. Originally, the show was just insights where I did industry leaders. We had these conversations in our industry, and it was a sales tool for utilizing or for marketing my machinery business that I built up over 30 years. And then I had a break, and I'll go deeper into that in a second. But coming out of that, I've always written. I've written thousands of poems, some of them published, and it's a real thing of mine that's within me. It's always been a healing tool, so it's always been able to roll out the emotions that I haven't been able to produce or show people. And I'll explain that when I go back and talk a little bit about my childhood, which is the reason that this show exists. This show exists, though, because of a book that I just mentioned right after that break that I wrote. It's actually a book proposal because it's a memoir. And let me just read off some of the titles here. Chapter 1 is An Awakening. And you can imagine, I won't go into the big details of it because I want to spend a little bit of time on what this all came about from. And in the beginning is the second. That's where we meet John, who's the protagonist, who's the main character in the show, and is based on my life. Chapter 3 is War, Love, Make Peace, not Make Pieces in Space. Men and Women, ? Family. So we talk. There's a lot of evolution that's going on in the relationship of families and the relationship between men and women. Chapter 5 is Schools, Tools, and Fools. And that's really a lot with what this chapter 5 is what really got the Regeneration School Project going. And the reason I say that is because I don't think anybody would argue that our school systems are horrible. And I've believed that for a long time. I'm not an education expert, but I'm a receiver, and I'm an expert in receiving information. Let's just put it that way, as well as a very curious person. I've always said that even Europe has a little better educational program than we do. At least they start guiding people in a direction, whether it be, whatever their interest goes, their education starts following a path. And this is something like that, but beyond the Regeneration School Project. Number 6 is the poverty of taxes. A little bit of politics in here, sprinkled throughout, of course. And then the next one is something I talk a lot about. Speaking still in politics is the division of races. The chapter 7, it's all about the race, and that's kind of been too prevalent in our society recently, for sure, and for a long time. And that's, in my belief, is a tool that each government, and our government in particular, because that's who we're talking about, used to separate. The great middle class is the most powerful entity ever to be seen in the world. And I say that because we control the most powerful nation in the world. And when I say control, what I really mean is we're the backbone, we're the infrastructure. We are the financial component, and we are the industrial component. You need leaders to have a vision and move things forward. But the moving of things forward physically and literally must be accomplished by those in the middle class. They divide us by men and women, then by races, religions, and then they throw shiny objects out there, or the example Simon and I were talking about the other day, the red and the black ants. They're in a jar and they're just mingling around, doing their whatever. You shake that jar a little bit, and instantly the red ants and the black ants start killing each other, attacking each other. That's kind of what we go through on a regular basis. And then number 6 is got to hit, smoke it if you got one. And we get into a little bit of the drug discussion in that, the addictions, the misinformation also that comes out in regards to how our leadership imposes restrictions or regulations on everything, but including that. And then chapter 9 is building a little bit more into where we are in our issues of illegal immigration. It's called Happy Home, Find One Without a Resident Alien. And then number 10 is it's all about the climate, stupid. You can imagine. And are you mental, man? That's really where we get into what I'll be talking a lot about shortly. I grew up in a military family, and there's a lot of mental dis-ease coming out of the military, especially ones in action and beyond. But we get a little bit about that, and then fake and otherwise news. We talk a lot about the news systems and the information that we're getting, and that was really a key for me getting kind of getting into this independent media source, because regular media is just an extension of either party, and they're both as guilty as the other at it. So we have to really work a lot harder to try and find out what the truths are about the things that leaderships, government officials are imposing upon their citizens. And then chapter 13 is called Blinded by the Light. And that's about religion. And we do, as you've seen, a number of shows on with different religious sects, and talk to each of the different leaders within those, because I really have I think not so unique view on religion. I think there was a social media post I put up, and it was somebody else's post, but it was brilliantly said. And basically it was, God's real, religion is man-made. And that's kind of okay, that sounds like a flippant statement, but you start looking at and digging into the Quran, Islam, getting into the Judaism, getting into Catholicism, or all of Christianity. There's 14 religions. I like to say there's 4 to 6 kind of more major religions, including Buddhism. Each of these talk about the same activities within their own writings. They all talk about the same God, but yet why do we have so many people killed over religion? Producer Barbie started this with me, and she's a big reason that that I'm still alive, to be honest with you. And there's been a lot of people that have put into the vision in my own mind of being here, and a reason to be here. Speaking of which, there's over 300 people here. Thank you very much. Please subscribe. We're trying to get to 10,000. I don't think we have yet. I haven't looked at it in the last 24 hours. So, that'd be a big jump. We have been getting increase subscriptions. So I really want to get to 10,000 by November. It's really, really important. But Barbie made a comment. We were talking, I don't think we talked yesterday. We were trading some information back and forth. But the day before, she called me, and we talked for like 2.5, 3 hours or something. She was just on fire. And she's very excited about how the show is continuing to progress. And she had made a comment that that she really believes this show is going to be a next level success, let's just say. And of course, she and I are both biased. You can't blame us for that. And I would hope that nobody within our circle, Simon included, and Emma, which we'll get into Emma a little bit later. She's having some things happen, and like any teenager, their life, if it gets a little complicated, gets very complicated. And that's not an insult, Emma. I don't mean anything by that. We already have questions coming in. Can't wait to hear from Emma. Oh, man. Oh, you guys want me to shut up here. Simon, they want to talk to you and Emma. I'm not bringing you on, though. I'm not getting off this. I still have a few more points to get to hear how Emma and Simon are transforming education. Now, we will talk about that, and it's a very true fact. But I'm going to have Simon here for a little bit here. And I'm going to, before we get there, I want to really talk to all the new people about what's built this foundation, this platform that we're building, and spreading a new approach about education and working within yourself. And there's a reason for those. I talked a little bit already about education. I touched on mental health a little bit. Those mental health, family, those are the things that built me. And addiction are some of the things that built me. We have over 420 people on already. I appreciate you guys being here. Subscribe and like the episode, please. If you like what you hear, and you want to come back, easy peasy, hit the subscribe, and you always know where to go. I really appreciate you guys being here. And like I said before, producer Barbie had mentioned that she really has a good feeling about this, and not just because of the way it's going, but she explained it to me like this. And she's been always a mentor and confidant of mine, mentor-ish and confidant of mine, a partner in many things, and including life. We spent a couple decades together. I raised a couple of her sons from a previous marriage, and so I've raised 5 boys, and that has something to do with what we're doing. But this actual platform was created because I wrote the book I was just talking about, and when I started querying it, I don't want to self-publish that. To me, I'd rather go through the efforts if I can make it happen, because I've had many agents tell me, I love you, your writing is phenomenal. Do you have a platform? And new writers really need to be able to show that they can sell themselves at least. And so, can you grow a platform? And that publication and agents, that's a business. The easier that they can see how to make a successful pitch and then a book. There's a lot of investment and money that they're putting into people. 471 people now. Thank you all for being here. So this is the reason I started this platform, is so that I could go back and start querying again. The good and bad part about that is this thing has taken off. I mean, I was looking for, never mind. It's just taken off, and now I haven't gone back to start querying that again. But I brought up Barbie because she said when I built the machinery business, we had gotten up where our next level was that 100,000, you're kind of a lifestyle business. You get into the millions, you're still kind of a mom and pop shop, so to speak. You get into 3 million, and now you must have some employees. You've got some support. You've got some structure. You've got to manage, and like I said, you need people, a vision, and then you have employees that need to make that vision go forward. Well, those numbers are starting to get there. We're a little over 5, heading to 12, which at 12. You're at a whole nother level in business. And she told me, she said, think back, Rod, you built this business, and it was awesome, and it was this and it was that, but it wasn't you. That was about your ego, right? And it was. I look back at that, and one of the things I always, actually, when I started the manufacturing side, I wanted to do that so I could get a patent in the patent office. So as I think back, it's almost devastating, the decisions that I've made for myself going through the years. She pointed out, though, that now I'm on the purpose that I was put on this earth to do. I started back in college in theater and in business, and the ego took me to business. And well, I'm good at sales, so that created money for the family. And when I was just selling, I was making, I don't know, $500,000 a year in just commissions. And so I started going after building that. And that's where the ego got in my way. I wasn't following my path. I was following the me that I developed through childhood. And I wanted to really talk about this a little bit, touch on it a little bit more than a little bit, I guess. But next week on Monday, I did the preview about 2 weeks ago of this show coming up, and it's Adrienne Caldwell. She's the author of a book called Broken, and it talks about, it's kind of like a J.D. Vance thing, I would imagine, in that, very disturbed childhood, a very destructive childhood. She was in an orphanage. There's all sorts of, and we'll get into that story later. But the bottom line, to me going through her information And since then, having had conversations, we're coming up close to 500 people, 468 people on right now. And I appreciate you all being here. We've got a number of questions going in. Please subscribe and like the episode. But as I was really going in, and over the last week, it's kind of started to sit with me, and you can kind of almost hear it on my chest, because it started bringing back memories. And, we talk about in the Regeneration School Project we talk about not only are we adding a fifth core, so you have math, English, science, history, and then you have preparation for life, let's call it, finding your voice, working with any mental health issues, working within the ability to have a bridge from education. Even now with Simon and I teaming up, we're bringing that age level or grade level down into the high school range, so that now high school kids aren't competing for drive-in, McDonald's style jobs or manual labor style jobs, which are all good if that's what you want to do. But you also have the opportunity, and Emma and I were talking about this with Simon a couple of weeks ago, and that ability to learn true next level job skills and have a digital footprint about work that you've done, that then employers of project management kind of needs, more technical kind of needs. You start learning that in the LEAF program in college, and we're now looking to break that down even further to where we start working in the Regeneration School Project, voices around the table or at the table. That is starting in a much younger age, just like you would start math in kindergarten, maybe just counting 1, 2, 3, or English is say your ABCs, starting at that base level to start building the education as they go in. So by the time they're in high school, even earlier, middle school, you've got, I know parents that teach at home that have kids that actually are running businesses and are buying their own stuff before they're even getting, or as they're getting into high school. So that's kind of that's where all of that is headed. And Simon and I will be talking about this in just a couple of minutes. But I wanted to bring up Adrienne because she's sitting heavy on my heart, because I grew up with parents that didn't have the skill sets. These are one of the things that we talk about in this program, is not only educating the kid, but also in community efforts, now adding skill sets to parents, and then opening the communication between the two, because I know how important that is from not having it. Not that I had horrible parents at all. I just there's a lot of parents that didn't have the skill sets, and then they pass whatever they have on to you, and then you try and make the best of it to try and pass on to the next generation. And that's not a very successful method. I know for me, I've been broken at least since my teenage years. I remember the first time thinking about committing suicide was at 16. And, a whole series, sorry guys, a whole series of events and the way I led my life and the thought processes I had, because they were my own. They weren't, Ronaldo talked yesterday. She left the house at 15 to go prove herself. I left at 18. I was still in high school, and I had my own apartment. But, she mentioned that when she left her home, she realized she didn't know everything. And, that's when you kind of lead your own life as a child without interaction between positive adults and parents that have skill sets and that have a mindset, you really come into the world at a much higher, much better level. see, Simon, I think we got to get you going here because I think I only got a couple minutes with you now. Why don't I'm going to get deeper into that at the end of the show because I want to give Simon his time. Emma is unfortunately going to be maybe listening. I don't know, hopefully, but she's got some issues with her at home that she needs to take care of. So, Simon, welcome. How you doing, my friend?
Boy, I am a little bit at a loss for words, which doesn't happen for me very often. Hearing you tell those stories.
Yeah, I was. I started realizing I was getting a little long breath there, and so I do want to go back afterwards and get into a little bit deeper where that is because it's critical. Because having not that, and then meeting and finding people that have had that and seeing the results. Fortunately for my grandkids, my kids are a lot smarter than I am and were able to kind of recover from me. And so, that's a positive side. My sister and I always said growing up that we're going to change the family dynamics. We're not going to, and I think a lot of kids have said the same thing. I'm not going to treat my kids like my parents treated me. A lot of times that's an incorrect thing because they find out that, they go too far the other way and then
Right.
you create monsters on the other side. We all know about this now. That's what's been going on. But I grew up in a way that I look back on. We all have and wish it was different. But there's some pretty big things in there that I still have hidden under the bush there, and not to let out at this point.
Yeah.
But, so how are you? I like this. Simple Simon. Why did you pick up Simple Simon? You got a haircut, didn't you?
I actually just got out of the shower, so my hair is just more looking good because it's but it was really interesting to hear you tell those stories. And I'll just very briefly say, as someone who was a high flyer, who got his ego in the way, got his ass kicked and fell apart, there is something about having that happen to you later in life that helps you learn things that, especially if you'd been successful earlier,
good point.
You're just not going to learn another way.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I appreciate that. That is a way to look that at something that's important. If you don't mind, since you've got a little bit of a limit here, how much time do you got left, by the way?
Got a little bit less than 10 minutes.
I took up 10 of the 30 you said I had with you.
That's all right.
So do you mind if we jump onto a couple of these questions and kind of knock some of these out? And then,
let's do it.
And then, okay. So like I mentioned earlier, can't wait to hear from Emma and Simon about Simon, who are transforming education. So I already read that. What inspired the idea of Agile classroom for teens? Yeah, what inspired that? That's a great question.
Sure.
By the way, two things. Let me just say, Mr. Valino, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Maria, awesome question. Go ahead, Simon.
Yeah, so basically, we got to Agile as a result of me just having been a social studies and high school teacher for a while, and realized that the sort of project-based learning, the student-centered learning that I'd been taught back in the 90s was being done really better in a lot of other ways outside of education. So we brought those Agile methods, found ways to incorporate them into classroom pedagogy, into curriculum. And that's basically, what we do, except that we don't call it Agile because a lot of people are like, what does that mean? That sounds like phys ed. Agile is a set of business practices, whatever, we're going to talk about that. But so basically how we got into it was it just works. Young people like it. Rod, to your point, there's lots of people like us who are plenty smart, but also pretty ADD and just need a high stimulus environment. Working in those ways, more hands-on, the stuff we were talking about, about that guy in Oklahoma, it was those reasons. It was getting kids to have better paths to show their best selves at school, show how they're smart, show all these things they can have, even if they're like me, a little bit dyslexic and kind of slow in some things, they can be way ahead otherwise.
Well, you're going to like this next question as well, because it kind of builds on it.
Sprint-based learning.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
How do you keep students engaged in that? And how did that come? I mean, fill in with the Agile, adding to this, and so
Sure.
hit both sides of that, would you?
Yeah. And really what I have to say is at the end, this is, the engagement is about purpose. Purpose, 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 purpose. Take a young person, give them some purpose that they feel as purpose, they'll do incredible stuff. So you keep students engaged by bringing purpose to the center of it. So I can talk about how you do that with a biology cell unit, how you do it in lots of different ways. But the engagement really comes from purpose and letting students have real choice about how they show what they know. And so when students can sort of buy in, have a voice, feel respected, that's how sprint-based learning works, is that you get purpose and you get autonomy, and kids love that.
You just connected something for me. I've talked about, and I don't know if you've ever heard this because I haven't said this so much, but I talk about what I call watch parties. And I know there's already some sort of watch party thing out there or some whatever. But I in the very beginning, it was about getting people more educated about the politicians and the what are they called when they put something on the ballot?
Yeah, their platforms. Their platforms.
Their platforms, and then the different, like we're gonna do this tax to build that street. Proposal.
Appropriations.
Appropriations, that you vote on, right? And it says how much it costs, and people always, they either see there's a tax and they say no instantly. They don't even read the rest of it, or they just kind of skim through it and read, check, right? I mean, and then the local politicians and national politicians, they vote for a name they know, or like producer Barbie said a few times, they vote down one side or the other. Okay, I voted, I get my sticker. I'm real proud. And she's even gotten to the point where people should have to qualify to vote. They should have some sort of training and some sort of this and that. But my point is, you said purpose.
Yeah.
So that's the basis of how to keep kids dialed into this.
I mean, that's how you keep, that's how you keep any human at work dialed in too. Bring them purpose, bring any human purpose, and they'll do good.
And that, I've always wondered, I give the example, you'll see, you can't get somebody to spend a couple hours or an hour on political situations coming up, getting together and chatting, but you'll see 90,000 people every Sunday at a football game. Okay, so that's not purpose, but that's an enjoyment. That's a thing, right? That there's people that are invested in those teams and that. When you said purpose, now that's how we get this movement going the next levels, figuring out that purpose, how to market that purpose, how to talk about that purpose, how to impress people with that purpose, right?
And the purpose for the most part is people want to be autonomous. They want to be independent. Our forebears fought wars for that. It's still true. Most people don't wake up thinking, I want to go suck at work. Most kids don't wake up thinking, I want to be a bad kid at school. They don't. They need structures and people like you who get it to invite out of them the best that is in there.
Jeffrey, awesome question. Awesome answer there, Simon. I appreciate that. We're gonna click through. We still got quite a few here to get. And I just want to make sure the ones about Leaf Lab or any of those terminologies, I'm learning from the man. I'm learning from the master. I'm not there yet. So Jack has, I have subscribed to your channel.
Thank you.
You, the man. Okay. I've scrubbed and shared it with my friends. Okay, Jack, dude. See, that's it. That's what I'm trying to get everybody to do. Jack, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I assume you were talking to me on that one, Jack. I'm hoping you are anyway, not Simon. Don't get me wrong, Simon, but I want people to subscribing, right? So Dirk says, how did the partnership between Emma and Simon first begin? That's a good question. And it's really kind of just new, and it's really kind of growing if Emma doesn't fall off a cliff here. But how do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I started on this journey a bunch of years ago with a bunch of other people like me who were basically sort of pissed off, low energy, sad about just kids getting the booty end of the stick and doing stuff. So I've met tons of people. I met Emma because of you. I met you because of me doing my job and being on shows like this to talk about, regular things that regular Americans can do to unfuck the basic systems of opportunity, provision, and distribution that we have in this country.
Yeah, and I'll just layer on that for a little bit, put a little color on it, if you don't mind. All of that is exactly the process that went through, and I think what really came together was the fact that not only we are on the same mission, we have the same kind of journey in what we're promoting in doing these activities,
Yeah.
but then it's even more special when it becomes like a baton handoff. So
Oh, yeah.
I think that's where some of the excitement you came, because basically we're now educating kids into a system that not only gives them their voice and builds their interest and builds their autonomy, but also it can be then handed off to where they're coming into the LEAF, let's say the LEAF lab, they're coming into that already so much further ahead than a generation before them was, because they just started there, and they're just starting there, and they're just finding out about it there. So now if we're going into the school systems, into the much younger ages, you got what, 12 years ahead ish, right?
Yep.
I mean, 12 years of extra on there, and that's a beautiful thing. Anything you want to say back on that to Dirk?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, and we're just psyched to have people listening and wanting to be a part of it.
We were talking about doing this on Monday. Actually, in our discussions, I assume you got my email saying, hey, a couple ideas here, this or that or whatever. And one of them would be, what are some of the success stories? What are the students, what are what's the, and I don't know how far you want to get into that here right now or on Monday.
Sure. I mean, I can tell the story of kids who have come through the lab and what they're doing now.
Okay, perfect.
So I'll choose an example.
Is that some of the biggest success stories? Is that your best, right? That's your best.
Well, I mean, biggest success story is a challenge, because is it biggest by institutional impact or by individual people? We're a startup, so we're small. We've certainly had some big successes, but they're not big by the standards of a huge, country. So for me, successes is kids coming out of the lab, finding purposeful work, or for some of the kids, they're from just really impoverished circumstances. So they want to get the job at Chase Manhattan Bank doing computer stuff because they know their parents are toast without them. For example,
that's a big deal. I mean,
so for example,
when I say, let me just to clarify, that's a big deal, not because of necessarily numbers, but the impact sometimes when without the child being able to, and you hear about it in all sorts of circumstances, especially more poorer or underprivileged circumstances. That seems to be a big case. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Kevin came through the lab. He was a really smart computer science student. He got hired by a huge financial company in Manhattan. The training he had gotten in the lab was such that he skipped the 3 or 4 week kind of training onboarding and went right to his team to start adding value. That had never happened before.
Wow, that's big. That's showing an effect that is likely foreshadowing the future, like what I just talked about.
Exactly.
That handoff. Then you're the next quarter mile in handing it off to the companies now, and now they're getting a better product.
Yes.
Employee person, like you said, adding value a month earlier than ever before could have ever been realized. Now, what's that going to look like moving forward, right?
Yep. So,
Jeffrey,
those are the sort of success stories of individual kids going out and just doing cool stuff in the world. We have partnerships with various colleges and schools. Those are really cool, and they're, fun to talk about. But I think that, the biggest success is yet to come. The biggest success is, there's billions of books written about why these methods work outside of school. Dozens. And to bring it into school, again, we've been doing this for 5 years, it works. And yet a lot of leaders are really nervous about it. And leaders are nervous about it. And some teachers are nervous about it because it means giving and sharing control of the classroom with other people. So that sort of usual, just listen to me, do what I say, shut up, and just keep your head down. That's
going away.
It's going to die. It's going to die. Those are not the people who are going to keep us ahead of China. If we are even ahead of China.
Or I don't know about educationally. I don't think we're like number 44 in the world in our, what people learn, and we're the number one that we cost students to get through. Yeah. I've got 4 more that are directly on this real quick.
Yeah, good. How does visible work help students build confidence? By seeing tangible progress, seeing tangible contributions that they're making to their team, to their understanding or, understandings of others. So visible work, using the work boards, Rod, like we use, like you and I use those task management things. Yep. It helps the students just keep track of stuff. It helps them not lose track of where they are in a work process, and it helps them learn to communicate with people better. So that's how the visible work really helps. Thank you for that question.
And yeah, thank you very much, Damien. And not only just to their teacher, but now to a business professional.
Yes.
So that's like a whole nother level of seeing that, to be congratulated by your teachers. Cool. That's awesome. Your peers. But now you've got a next level peer that says, hey, so-and-so, that's awesome. Or whatever it is. They accept the project. Now somebody out there at the next level is also appreciated. That's awesome. Jennifer, what's one change every school could make tomorrow? I wanted to get this. And to get started, I really wanted you to hit this one.
One brave person.
One change. Yep.
So one change in every school that they could do tomorrow to get started would be to call Rod. If you know a school person, have them call Rod. That's it. I mean, it is as simple as that.
Duff at outlook.com or 714-396-5352. I don't mind giving out my cell phone. Call me. We'll make it happen.
Yes, we will make it happen.
And any other suggestions to go along with that for Jennifer?
Just be brave. Just be brave. Just be brave. Small steps, invitations.
It's like I say, I was on Brandon's show and he talked about just not giving up, not be brave, not giving up. You're going to have pushback because the systems want things to stay the same because they're benefiting. They're doing fine.
Yeah.
Compliant. Being brave means you just got to keep going at it. You're the ones that's going to take the arrows, to be honest with you, you're going to take the arrows, but at the end of the day, this has to go somewhere and we're the ones that have to do it.
Yeah. We can't keep failing our kids.
Yes. So Chris wants to know, how do internships and micro-apprenticeships fit into traditional schooling?
Yeah.
I see this. I can see this.
So the fit is sometimes really bad because the teachers or the principals don't care enough to make it happen. So internships can and micro-apprenticeships can fit into traditional schooling if the leaders of the school either get the support or believe it, it should be done. So they can fit. They just, they're a way, especially in 11th and 12th grade into college, to get, again, people to learn how to do stuff, how to work in teams, blah, blah, blah. I mean, all the stuff that I think your audience already knows. But the fit is possible. You just got to have leaders who are courageous and willing to work with outsiders like me and Rod to get over barriers that people didn't think they could get over before, either in their head or outside of them.
Great way to put that. Just one added thought. I've been involved in both public and private schools from both sides of the parenting, as a kid and as an adult. Mm-hmm. And one thing I noticed that in private schools, and probably things like I know in things like Montessori and so forth, those internships and micro internships is what we're feeding into, right? What you're feeding into. Those are very, very sought after. They work with businesses. I mean, the last school that Matt went to was a Christian school in downtown Chicago. Instead of $44,000 a year, it cost $12,000 a year. Now out of my pocket, but big difference. Way better system, and they have people that are involved in the school to do internships at high school, and then of course college is something that's dialed in already as part of the program. Last one here, and then we can kind of Bradley Pomp. I always promise to give him a shout out. He started showing up about, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, and he just pops in every once in a while and says great things. What advice would you give to educators just discovering Agile learning? Yeah. So, I mean, what's the elevator pitch to him? I mean, that's kind of what he's asking, I assume, Bradley, there, right?
Yeah. So I guess the advice that I would give is experiment thoughtfully with someone else you trust in the building. So that would be one thing. If you're just starting out, if there's a mentor.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean? Experiment with somebody you trust. So at the school, somebody you may know, talk to them about it and see what the reaction is before you make the other discussions. Is that what you meant by that?
Well, so I mean, I'm interpreting the question as, giving to educators just discovering Agile. So this is people who are learning about the method, have heard about it, but are not sure how to apply it.
Okay.
So when I say experiment, I would say start small. And a lot of what Agile is about is just sort of learning and feedback cycles. And I would just say, just experiment. And if there's someone else in your school building who you just trust and can talk to and kind of bounce ideas around, that's really important. I would say discovering Agile is something that you can do on your own. I certainly did for a long time. But then when I found other people who I could just sort of bounce ideas off of, we got better faster together.
Interesting. All right. So how much are you at the wire here?
Yeah, about 2 more minutes, I think.
Closing statement.
Wait, let me actually double check, because I want to give me a second.
1001. Just
okay. Yeah, about 2 more minutes.
All right. So in the closing, I wanted to, let's see. Now I got to okay. So the Agile learning process is am I connecting the right two things together here when you and I have talked about, basically you have the educator spend 5 minutes with the students and answering any questions or this or that, and then the educator steps back, and then the kids handle for the next what is it, X amount of time.
Yep.
And what is 2 to 5 hours a week is what the time commitment windows are, time commitment, and then so is that, explain that and then wrap it up in your closing statement. But explain that detail, how that works.
Sure. So
Agile system.
Sure. So Agile can be brought into any classroom anywhere on earth, no problem. The lab is a way of doing it that is very different from anywhere else on earth, because we're the people who sort of developed it and let students practice it in a sort of practice in a more specific way. So you can do Agile learning, and I can bring guests on, these women down in Florida who are awesome, who can talk about their experience in the classroom teaching.
Could you have that set up by Monday, by chance?
By Monday.
That's our show. You're my show.
Yeah. I don't
know if that's too soon.
I'm not sure, but let me work on that. She'll come on and we can talk about that.
But in the lab, so that's why I'm asking. Go ahead.
Right. So the lab is something that we built because most schools weren't doing, almost no schools are doing Agile learning. So we built a lab so that students could get that exposure regardless of whether their school was doing it or not. So, what we're talking about with the lab is 2 to 5 hours a week in a very specific way. And any classroom can use these sort of this pedagogy, these methods, our curriculum.
What's it look like? What does the method look like?
Remember those pictures I showed you of those teachers?
Yep, with the stick.
Yes.
Post-it notes, sorry.
So what it looks like is you have a big, information ready. You have a big workboard in the classroom, and you bring pieces of work to the class, and how you bring it to the class is really, really important. And if there's any teachers who want to try this, I would kind of walk you through how do you get your class ready, because most classes you can't just like turn them loose because they've been trained for years to the usual mode. You can't just say, hey, go get it. Yeah, they need a lot of sort of scaffolding and support as they move into those patterns and practices of learning, collaborating, problem solving, blah, blah, blah.
All right, that's beautiful. I mean, and what I wanted to just make sure that that original teacher or the teacher spends. So the class would be, let's say it's 2 different days, an hour to 2.5 hours each. Wow. Okay.
Yep.
It's somewhere in that range. So that teacher comes in, and as it's already going through the progress, you're you're making the transition already. Now you're established. Literally, the teacher is spending 15 minutes and going through what needs to go through, and then from there, the students, it's their gig.
That's right. So it's that initial point with the students getting clarified, students get to work, and then the teacher is working, sort of filtering through the space, checking in with students, making sure that they've got what they need and they're focused on the work and that the purpose is clear to them.
It's beautiful, man. Wrap her up, man. I know you got to go. You're good, or
yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank
you. And I'll see you Monday, and we'll just keep this thing going.
Have a great trip, man. Tell your daughter I said hi.
Thank you.
And good luck today in her thing.
Yeah. Ciao.
All right.
Bye.
Ciao. Bye. All right. And boom. All right. So I'm gonna continue on with any questions that come about the school, about the Regeneration School Project and the leaflab.org. And like Simon says, if you want to get involved and really start working on it. By the way, thank you for the general. Let me go back. I owe you some better respect than that. Where are you at? Is it how did Jeffrey? No. I'm missing it. Oh, come on! I want to say your name. Anyway, thank you very much for subscribing and telling all your friends to subscribe. Any questions that come in about the school, either leaflab.org or go to my website, www.rodduff.com, RODDDUFF.com, obviously here on YouTube, but we also are streaming at the same time to my Facebook profile, to LinkedIn. On my LinkedIn profile, I have 2 of them, and one of them's got a bald head and one of them's got hair. So the hair one is the right one. The other one I started, I don't know, it's just out there. And then X as well as Instagram. We stream out live to those on each show, and so with that, any questions that come up, I'll go ahead and address those. But I did want to go and finish the story. I'm not going to tell all of it. I don't think we have enough time, and I don't want to end this on too sad of a note. But my growing up was in a lot of ways was at the end of the day the most perfect way I could grow up, because of all the experiences, being in a military family and then in big industrial equipment sales. I've lived and been all over the world. And I say that because the experiences that I've been able to gain really have kind of fueled my ability to have these conversations with experts, of course, because I know a little bit about a lot of things. A whole lot of things, but just a little bit. So it's given me the ability to have these conversations, and this show produced the way that it is. But as I was saying in the beginning, that same family light. Oh, I didn't turn on one set of lights. Huh. I wonder. I thought it was a little bit darker today, but so as I grew up. My sister and I both grew up in a very tragic scenario. And not only did we, for my sister, it wasn't as beneficial for her because she has a different personality, and she had a number of disappointments. She was always kind of standoffish in school and crowds and so forth. And And then one time she finally got her dream and made the cheerleading team, which is, as you know, in high school is a big deal for people, for certain people, especially for her, because she could finally be comfortable and be in the very, before she even was able to get her uniform, we found out we had to move. And that was kind of crushing for her. So that was difficult. But so there's pluses and minuses in that basic structure. But even deeper than that, I grew up in at times was very abusive in many different ways. And I was telling you earlier, I had to raise myself and really had to raise my sister. A lot of, alcohol and all of that involved, Marine Corps, what do they call them? Officers' parties, a lot of alcohol are involved in those. They're very formal and very big deal. And then, parents being a part most of their marriage, basically, and the complexities and difficulties that come with that, the stress of my dad doing three tours, it's called tours, right, in Vietnam, which is, was very devastating and ugly, and well, all war is devastating and ugly, but the people who see their best friend get their face blown off right next to them, having a tank blow up on one of those roadside bombs and splitting it in half, and having a sniper cut your somebody walking next to you in half, with a gun, and and on and on and on and on. In his third tour, I don't know why I'm having trouble with that word. He was a medic, so he even saw more. Ended up as a captain, and there were a lot of beautiful parts of that, and a lot of beautiful things about my family's dynamics. But the things that shaped me were the other side of that. There was a lot of rough parenting or absent parenting, and there was sexual abuse and different things involved in the raising within my entire family, meaning out to cousins and so forth, and we had times had to spank each other, and I know there's one particular niece, would that be niece? No, not niece, cousin, that incidents occurred that were very, 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 very difficult to break away from, to not have feelings throughout the rest of your life, and those things that I'm being vague about, not because of me, but because it's I don't want to go beyond that for other people's reasons, and that I said before, the first time I thought about killing myself was at 16. And I remember it exactly. We were living in an apartment, and in Southern California, beautiful place, obviously. But I remember standing, and there was this apartment building, jacuzzi and pool and all that, standing by the jacuzzi, and just my life, it becomes a burden, and at times you don't know how you're ever going to get your way out, and so I eventually, as I mentioned earlier, Barbara, producer Barbie, and we talk regularly and always have, but there's so much that I owe her, as well as other people in my life, but she's the reason I'm no longer Rod Duff. I'm me, and because I always lived behind a mask. JR was that mask. Being very good at sales, I was able to be successful, but I was just running through life. I wasn't paying attention to what was in my wake, what I was leaving in my wake. She made the comment that that part of my life was all about ego, my ego, wanting to be something that I felt I never had been. And that's dangerous. As I look back, hindsight, right, is 2020. But that's extremely dangerous, because what happens is you're not living your journey, your life, you're living your ego. And in its worst case, which I always have been, I mean, not outwardly, but in private moments and at moments and so forth, I look back and really did and was not what I should have been for the first couple partners in my life. I've only had a couple partners. So any partner in my life, maybe going back to high school, I was never confident, and yet I was egotistical. And so it was a very complex head space that I lived in for the greatest part of my life. I'd say, if not all of it. I mean, I doubt as a baby, but as a toddler even. But I mean, there are some pretty traumatic events that went on that I wasn't tooled up enough. I didn't have enough of the tools, and that's why some of these things are so important to me. The Regeneration School Project, it has entities to it. In other words, being a fifth core, and this is why I want to start at such a younger age than say Simon is doing with the L-EAF lab project. And I say that because I really believe that in order for us to get to that utopian way, we really need a generation of kids growing up differently than the great amount of the middle class lives today. And a people, period. That's not a class thing. That's not a financial thing. Although if there's stresses, that's obviously putting stress on the family that are involved. There's all that complexity. But I really believe that if I was in that system, if this system was in place as I was growing up, or my generation was growing up, our kids would be completely different kids at a good level. It would be completely different mindsets than they are today. Not to say that they're bad or anything, but we're talking about giving children the tools to be able to have a voice, one, but also to be able to find autonomy, to be able to be comfortable in their own skin. I haven't been comfortable in my own skin until recently. Now I'm very comfortable in my own skin, but that's a big deal. If you can be comfortable in your own skin, then that means you don't have those thoughts and those issues going through your brain at all times. And that leads for a better life. This program, a fifth core subject. So we talk about in science, math, English, science, history. So in the science curriculum, you talk about what mental health is and what some different issues are, as well as the actual sciences. But if you're able to get into when this starts running from the beginning and moving forward, now you have preparation for life. And that's actually working with any issues that may be mental health. And more importantly, it's open somebody up to look at that and say, hey, I need to chat with somebody, but also learning finances at a structured level, learning how to find your own voice in a way that will bring people out of the closet. It will bring people off of the wallflowering, that will give people confidence, so that the mixture of friends growing up also becomes a much broader case, because now there's so much more people that are at the same priorities, are at the same confidence, And that goes both ways. You know, the old reputation of the jocks and the cheerleaders was that, you know, it's fake confidence. In other words, you know, that's where a lot of issues come out of, and picking on other kids that are weaker, that don't have the confidence, that are, you know, that are a different set, that aren't just like them. Well, you know, you want to get rid of bullying. You want to get rid of all this stuff that goes on in high school, which is a really critical time in a child's life. But if I'm not mistaken, probably one of the worst periods, or the highlight of their life, which are both bad. And it really shapes a lot of people and beyond. So I just wanted to impress upon everybody, or remind everybody, what are some of the reasons that this is such a personal mission for myself and others, obviously, but there's reasons we all do things. And this show, Insights and Straight Talk, with your host Rod Duff, is based upon preparing for the utopia. And with that, I'm out.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here, and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.